welcome to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World. Leading Entrepreneurs of the World features entrepreneurs, founders, and business leaders presenting on cutting-edge topics and the latest in industry developments. Our goal is to provide the global business and entrepreneurial communities with a window into the minds of those who are shaping the future of the world. Today, we're very pleased to welcome global entrepreneur and marketing expert, Gregory Dobak. Greg is the founder and CEO of Blue Ink Digital, a boutique customer acquisition agency. At Blue Ink, Greg and his team believe that quality, integrity, and cutting-edge technology are key drivers of performance, and they help their clients achieve their goals by always being laser-focused on delivering excellence and outsized performance in each campaign. Gregory has spent several years in the startup and marketing world and has held senior management roles across 4 startups on 3 continents. Greg has also an impressive educational background, and he is also a bar-certified attorney in New York State. Greg, it is a great pleasure to have you here with us today to hear more about predictive lead generation being the 21st century approach to growing a business. Thank you, and welcome to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. Well, thank you again for having me today. Thank One Business World for this opportunity. And I'm really excited to be speaking for the Leading Entrepreneurs of the World speaking series. I'm also very excited to be talking with all you guys today about predictive lead generation. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart. It's a topic that I've been working on not only with this startup and this business, but with previous ones. And it's really core to kind of how I view startups and how we've approached starting small businesses and scaling them. And so I'm very excited to share that information and that knowledge that I have today with you guys, and for the opportunity to speak with you all. So with that, I will jump into things. And so there we go. And so a little bit of background about me. Amazing intro. Thank you so much. I'd like to just start a little bit just so you guys know a bit about me, what I have expertise in, what I can talk about, and where maybe you want to believe me, and maybe where you don't. And so I've been a startup advisor for actually a couple of years now. So I've talked with probably over 100 different startups, and so you can get information from a lot of different places. And so I think a little bit of background is always helpful. I am a New York licensed attorney, so I do that, although I do not practice. I have been involved with several startups prior to this, but really the main thing I've been working on, what I'm going to kind of be talking about just as an example, is Blue Ink Digital. It is a company that I started about 4 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago. And it is a lead generation company. So we generate leads on behalf of other companies as part of their sales process. And we've come up with a lead generation process that we use for our clients and how to generate leads for them. But it's also been the process that we use to grow internally. And so with that process, we bootstrapped the company from 0 in revenue, straight, nothing, to 3.5 in a little over 3 years. And so it's a process that we've really fine-tuned and something that I think can be helpful for other people. So I'm excited to kind of chat with you guys about that today. So to get into it, predictive lead generation, what is it? Why does it matter? And so for this presentation, I really want to kind of cover 2 areas. So I want to start off with the theoretical. So what is lead generation? How does it fit into your business? What does it do? Why is it important? But I also think it's very important to get some practical knowledge, some output from this presentation. So the last half of this, I'm going to talk a lot more specifics. How can you implement this? How do you set up testing? How is it that you can create this and actually start generating, revenue and growth for your business using this kind of concept? And so cover a little bit both. So to begin with, I want to start off on what it is. Why does it matter? To kind of start off with, and you see the picture there, I like to use an analogy about kind of fitness. I'm not necessarily a bodybuilder or anything like that myself, but I think it's a good analogy to kind of understand lead generation as a concept and sort of break it down and make it very easy to understand. And so in that sense, what we're talking about is, what it's all about. And so lead generation is very much, your business is your body. What you put in your lead generation is the food. And so lead generation is as varied as food is. You have high fat food, you have turkey, cake, you have salads, you have, and just like that, you have that in the marketing world, you have inbound, outbound, you have conferences, you have high value, long tail, you have all these different ways of doing lead generation, of getting people in, getting people interested in your business. And they're not all equal, and they shouldn't be treated equal. And so what you do and what you put in has a very different effect on the outcome, which is revenue, is growth, and is ultimately profit for your business. And so really kind of analyzing what does lead generation do is very important, because it is, at the end of the day, lead generation, some people kind of think about it more as marketing, but whatever way you kind of think about it, it is the galaxy of possible opportunities. No sale, no amount of revenue, that all starts off in the lead generation funnel. And so you have to have that. That's part of it. That's how every sale goes through that in one way or another. And so thinking about that really top funnel aspect is important. And so kind of getting in a little bit deeper, that is lead generation as a whole, but what is predictive lead generation? And so this is really when we start to kind of think about lead generation more as a concept. And kind of back to our food analogy, we're sort of like approaching it more like a nutritionist, right? So you could go to the gym every day and just eat whatever, and you may have results or you may not have results. But if you take a more methodical approach about it, if you're trying to gain muscle and you eat a lot of protein-rich foods, you're going to see results a lot faster than if you're just not caring about your diet. And so the same is very true for lead generation. And so thinking about it in the sense of what is those lead generation programs, what are those concepts, what are those tracks that are going to have the highest output for you, and focusing on them, based on what kind of business you are, will have the best results for you. And so kind of thinking about this is the fact that you can predict the outcome of your lead generation, of those efforts, ahead of time. And so that's really the kind of the connection, the nexus that I want to establish early on. Is predictive lead generation is just looking ahead at your kind of your outreach, at your marketing, and deciding what is the outcome of those efforts going to be, because that is really going to determine the trajectory of your business, of all of your marketing, of ultimately the profit and the growth that you achieve. And so this predictive is no more complicated than that, and just focusing on what are the things that will predict the outcome, which really gets it into why is this important. And so one thing that we're going to be talking about quite a bit today, marketers will talk about it all day long, is CPA, cost per acquisition. And so people maybe think cost per acquisition is your cost of like your sale cost, right? So and I'll talk a little bit more about Blue Ink, we work a lot with solar panel installers, home improvement companies, we work in insurance. And so, if we're talking about solar, the cost per acquisition might be the cost of marketing to put a new solar panel installation on a roof. And so if you have $3,000 in marketing costs and you install 3, your cost per acquisition per ultimate sale would be $1,000. But your CPA doesn't necessarily have to be the ultimate sale. And a lot of times that's not the number you actually want to focus on. You want to focus your CPA on what are those milestones, those steps that lead up to the sale, because a lot of times those are more predictive and more important for your overall efforts than just focusing on that cost per sale, because it's very high level and it can be very misleading. And so when we're talking about cost per acquisition, it's really like, what is the cost per acquisition? And that can be defined as, total media cost. It can be defined as your total overall cost, whatever you want to define that, but that cost per that target action. And so this is really important. And so when we start getting into the practical side, we're really going to be focusing in on those cost per acquisitions. How do you test? How do you optimize for that? And so at a high level, you have to think about predictive lead generation being predicting some outcome in terms of CPA. And so at the end of the day, what this really means, though, is going to be meaning understanding your business. And so without having predictive lead generation, you don't really understand your business, because you don't know what inputs are going to lead to outputs. And so you're not going to be able to model your business. You're not going to be able to predict growth if you don't have a good understanding of that predictive relationship, which is really predictive lead generation. And so kind of just going back to Blue Ink a little bit and what we do there, really what we've set up, and from the beginning, both on the consumer side, so when we're selling, to our clients, and we have consumer leads, that's more B2C. And then we have our B2B, which is what we do internally to, get our clients. we're looking at CPAs on both of those, for our clients, what makes them money, because maybe they don't track this as well as we do, or what allows us to acquire customers, so allow us to grow. And both ways, we're really looking at that CPA number. And so, just kind of sum that up, that is the theoretical, I think we're on the same page of what is predictive lead generation. But like I said, I really do want this to have some good takeaway and some things that you can actually do, some action items. And so let's get into setting up, how do you actually set up predictive lead generation? How can you implement that? And how does that actually benefit your business? And this can really generate, benefit any business. We work with a lot of solar and home improvement clients, and they have a constant need for new clients. It's a fairly short sales cycle. But this can work for, enterprise sales, anything, very long sales cycles too. It's all about setting up this testing, optimization, and granularity. So getting into how we do it specifically, we will start off with testing. And so for the testing, really it's kind of a 4-step process here. And so, this is kind of where we get away from the fitness example and where that breaks down, because unlike fitness and food, where it's kind of, you have rough approximations, for marketing in the 21st century, what we can do today, you can be extremely precise. We can run multiple campaigns at the same time. We can run multiple programs. And if you have it set up properly, you can test each one of these programs and you can get an actionable outcome from each one of these at the same time in a very, very granular level. And so you can test very methodically huge amounts of data. I mean, we're taking in millions of points of data every day. And you can make actionable outcomes of that, even with a small team or not a huge budget. And so really this kind of brings it down to the very first point in this 4-step process amongst testing. And so the very first thing is you have to set up tracking. And so tracking is absolutely vital for your predictive lead generation, because if you're not tracking it, then you can't measure it, you can't test it, it is an unknown to you. And so you're not going to have any idea of how well you're doing if you can't track it. So setting up tracking, needs to be attribution. It needs to be, how can you, track a lead, a potential person coming through your sales cycle from, outreach all the way through closing and sale. And so for tracking for digital sales, so what a lot of we do, this can be, tracking tokens, this can be cookies, this can be, postbacks and pixels and things like that. For businesses that are in the real world, maybe you just track, where did this person come from, which conference it came from. But in the end of the day, you need to set up a way for you to be able to track this person, be able to tag, any individual lead, so you can test this moving forward. And then after you tag them, so after you are able to track, for whatever metric, you need to work on centralization and attribution. And so if you're able to track, you then need to be able to put them into a campaign. So maybe it's a conference, maybe it's a Facebook campaign or TikTok campaign, but you need to be able to put them into some sort of campaign. So multiple people coming through the same funnel would be the same campaign, and centralize this. So you can see all these different campaigns in one spot. And so to set this up, you may need a database. You can use Zoho. There's all sorts of other databases, Metabase, Amazon have different ways of setting this up. So you can tag, track, and then also centralize and attribute. But you need to have this set up ahead of time before you even get started. So that way, whatever tests you do run, you can attribute this back and you can get good data, because at the end of the day, really, and this is kind of a machine learning concept, garbage in, garbage out. It really does apply to this as well. If you have bad tracking, bad attribution, it's garbage in, and you're going to have very bad results as far as being able to attribute, to able to tell what actually happened here. And so at the end of the day, maybe your sales go up or down, but you have no idea what caused that, what things are actually making the difference in your sales process, and what's actually leading to the growth of your business. And so the third step is really then the testing. So if you have tracking, centralization, now we have to get into the testing. So the testing is very important. This is where you get to be a little bit creative, because this does take some kind of high level, thinking. Is you need to think, okay, what is a difference here that may impact our sales? And so, you may go to a conference and, how do you test one conference to the next? It could be you have a different, marketing setup. Maybe you wear flashy clothes. Maybe you have, you're a speaker at one and not another. Each one of those can be a specific test. And so if you can track and attribute leads coming from each of those, you can see what the outcome is, and you can see what differences, made an impact there. For us, testing really is more in the digital environment. And so we do massive amounts of tests, and this can be, very broad level. So different landing pages or, high level marketing, all the way down to very, very, small changes, changes in font, color, buttons, things like that. But no matter which way you're doing it, if you're able to test, and this is important, then you're going to be able to tell and make actionable decisions. And so coming up with those tests is really about making sure it's fair. And so making sure test A is comparable to test B. So if you have leads coming in through one funnel, you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're changing, and you should really only be changing one element at a time, is everything is same from A to B. The element that you're changing is your test, and you want to run that test quickly. And so until you have enough data to be able to determine, did that element that you changed make an effect? Did it have some sort of outcome change for your system, or did it not? And if it did, is it positive or negative? And so really, and then step 4 is simply repeat. So you're going to basically track, centralize attribute. You want to then test, and then test your hypothesis, and then repeat. And the faster you can do this process and fast as you can iterate, the faster your lead generation program is going to grow, and the more actionable decisions you're going to be able to make. Which then gets us to the optimization side. And so optimization is really where the rubber meets the road. This is really where you're taking these tests that you've done, and you can make something actionable. So everything up until this point is, it's foundation. You've put it into place. It's absolutely critical, but you really haven't, made a change for your organization. You haven't really made any improvements until you get to optimization. Now, this is where you take that test that you ran, where maybe you had 2 Facebook campaigns and you had one slogan on one and one slogan on another. You found that slogan 1 produced 20% better conversions. And so with that, now you want to optimize. So what we typically do is we run A/B testing. So A/B testing is as simple as that. It's version A versus version B. So you've run your test, version A and B, maybe they started off with 50-50. After the test, we found version A had a 20% better conversion rate. We're now going to allocate 90% of our traffic to version A. That means you are now optimizing, you're gaining the benefit of that increased conversion rate. So you're now increasing your sales cycle. You are growing faster through that optimization. And then for the B, you take that 10% traffic and use that for testing. So now you take a new slogan, a new thing that you want to test against your A version, and you come up with that for your B version. You run that till you have enough data. And then if your B version is better, that becomes your dominant version. That gets 90% and your A version goes up. Or if your A version stays dominant, you kick out your B and you bring in a new competitor, and you keep doing that process. You keep iterating on that. And so, at a very high level, you're going to basically be able to do, big optimizations. And through this process, it's not uncommon for us to see 50, 60, 80, 100% increase in performance. And so you can really take, a cost per acquisition that was very high, unsustainable. And through this optimization, through this testing, through this repeating program, you can get that cost per acquisition way down. And at the end of the day, that's going to be, extremely helpful. And that's going to be what gains efficiency for your organization. Which really gets us to kind of our last point here. And so through this optimization, we get to granularity. And so what I mean with granularity is really the ability to go deeper. And so when you first start off, you're going to be doing really high level optimizations. This might be a whole website versus a whole nother website. This could be a whole marketing campaign versus another whole marketing campaign. Really, really broad, big things. But as you find out those dominant versions, those ones that have the best conversions, you're going to narrow in on that. And you're going to increasingly make smaller and smaller changes to that. And so now you have your dominant version of your web page. Maybe start changing out the headers. After you find the headers that really work well, maybe you start changing out the button types. After you start changing out the button types, maybe you start getting down to changing out the fonts, down to changing speed and different very small elements. And so each one of these, of course, is going to, if you do it right, increase the conversions, increase the efficiency of your marketing programs, and which is really important for you in predictive lead generation, because each one of these is going to allow you to understand that this is going to lead to some outcome, and you have a very scientific understanding of the nexus and the connection between these two. And so as you go broad, those first changes will have probably very big impacts. You could be 20, 30% swing in between two different versions. But as you get down to those smaller changes, you might be talking about, half, quarter, a 1/10% change when you're making these small changes. But when you're making, 20, 30 of these changes and optimizations, that adds up. And so that might be the last 10, 20, 30% of your optimization, but it's also your competitive advantage because it's pretty easy for other people to copy the high level changes, these kind of broad strokes versions. And so people can get, 80% of the way there from copying you. And if we're, like our clients are operating in verticals like solar, which really don't have a huge barrier to entry. So, anybody can kind of enter the field. It's kind of a marketing challenge. And so really your barrier to entry, your competitive advantage at the end of the day is going to come down to this granularity, to this finely tuned optimization, because it's very, very hard to copy. It's very hard to replicate. It's very hard to get that testing done because it takes so much time and dedication to do it properly that you're always going to convert 20% better than anybody who's entering, even after they've done optimization, if you do it better. And so that really is what kind of can set you apart and what can grow your business and really be kind of the final piece here of putting it together in terms of this optimization. So kind of what does this mean, summing it up? So what this really means from an overall perspective is we're going from predictive to profit. So the whole reason we're doing this is because you want to grow your business, you want to make more revenue, you want to do it faster, you want to do it more sustainably. And so really at the end of the day, what we're getting to is kind of the three major outcomes from this whole process. And the first one is going to be better resource allocation. So we're talking about predictive lead generation. We're giving you the ability to predict what inputs are going to create what outputs, where things are going to lie, where the chips are going to fall at the end of the day. And with that, then you can then allocate your resources better. So this could be if you have a sales team that is a really high-end sales team that is very expensive, maybe you want to divert most of your resources to generating leads that are very expensive, but have a very high close rate because that matches the kind of sales organization that you've created. Once you've done that with this better resource allocation, you can allocate more resources to those programs. You can allocate more resources to getting high-end salespeople, and you're going to have a good return on that. And so you can really shift these existing resources in the way that is most optimal for your setup, which is going to, without any new investment, without any new net money coming in, you can really optimize and grow your organization without changing, without having to put new input in, just optimizing your existing resource allocation, which is huge. And it's really going to boost what you're going to do. On top of that, you get better ROI. And so this is when we start adding new resources in. So you've optimized where your teams are, what your existing resources are. But if you're able to predict from this galaxy of possible opportunities, what the best one is coming out, you're going to have a better ROI. You have a better return on investment. So you know that you need high-end salespeople, so you can invest more money and get those really high-end salespeople. Or you can really go and find those leads that are really high intent that cost more, and you can invest in those because if you buy $100 lead or you spend $100 to get a lead, that you are going to make $1,000 on that. And so you can really invest confidently knowing that that's going to have a very positive ROI. Without the predictive lead generation or without knowing this, then you don't know if that investment up front is going to have a good return. And really, you don't know if it's going to have a return at all. And so really understanding this nexus is critical so you can make those investments moving forward and have some confidence in what you think the predicted outcome will be. And this is really, really important for especially long sales cycle organizations. So when we're talking about people who have sales that maybe take 3, 4, 5 months, a year, you cannot wait for that whole sales cycle to be done before you optimize and iterate. You need to have those steps, those CPA points along the way. And you need to know and have a very good predictive idea of the outcome from each one of those. So you can make these changes up front and you can be optimizing before the sales cycle is even done. And so really, the better ROI is one of the biggest outcomes of this. And of course, the culmination of those two, and really the third one here is faster, more sustainable growth. And so if you are lowering your cost inputs to get revenue out, so if it's costing you half as much to do a sale, then you can do twice as much. And so this is really faster or more sustainable growth. You can do more with the same amount or even the same with less. And so this will help you grow faster. This will help you achieve your goals quicker and also become more sustainable, because understanding the whole market from the funnel down is very important predictively if you're going to be able to react quickly. If you know that all your sales channels depend on conferences and that is your main input for sales and has the highest ROI for your organization, and then a pandemic comes through and you know that's going to disrupt conferences, and if you understand that connection, you can shift really early before all the conferences get canceled to a new model to make sure that your organization is stable, rather than reacting to those things happening and then realizing down the road that's impacting your sales fairly significantly. And so really understanding up front what is that predictive relationship is critical. And so with that, kind of sums up the whole thing. Really comes down to your competitive advantage, your sustainability, and creating a highly efficient, highly sustainable organization. And so with that, I am going to go ahead and wrap it up. There might be some questions, so stick around at the end here, but here's my contact information if you'd like to get in touch. It was a pleasure. I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions or anything else, I would love to chat, and good luck with all of your marketing.